It's no secret, New Year's resolutions usually don't work very well at all. They probably last a few days on average. And there are various reasons for that. People are super motivated when they make the resolution, but then the motivation doesn't necessarily stick around. So a better approach, rather than making a resolution, is to actually build new habits. And building new habits is kind of the opposite of making a resolution in various ways. Instead of getting all super excited and doing something big, you actually do something small and stick with it for a while. So in this video, I'm going to explain how you can start building better health habits today, specifically habits related to nutrition and fasting and exercise and things like that. And so you can do it in a way that's actually sustainable for the long haul. I'm going to draw some inspiration from the book called Atomic Habits and apply some of those principles to these health habits. And by the way, I did a podcast and a blog post on this topic. They're a little more in-depth, so I'll put links to those below. And if you're thinking of forming the habit of intermittent fasting or incorporating that into your lifestyle, I also have a 10-day challenge that can help you do that. I'll put a link below and I'll explain a little bit more about that at the end of the video. So first, why is building habits the opposite or so different from making a New Year's resolution? Well, as I mentioned earlier, when you make a New Year's resolution, usually you're super excited, you're super motivated. But do you stay motivated every day of the year? No. So if you have to rely on motivation, it's not going to last. Motivation comes and goes, comes and goes. You really can't stay motivated all the time. So instead, you need to have something you can do when you're building a new habit, something you can do even when your motivation is pretty weak, is pretty low. And so that's why when you're building a new habit, what you want to do is start very small. So you want to have something very small you can do consistently, even when you're not that motivated. And then you use some other tips and tricks to kind of make it easier to do day after day. And then after a while, it gets easier because it's a habit. And so as you do that new habit, you start to form a new identity. So you're like a new person, like, oh, I'm the type of person who exercises every day. So you form that new identity, and then it gets easier. It becomes part of your system. And there's a quote from that book, Atomic Habits, that I mentioned earlier, which is, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your system. And your system is kind of made up of all your habits. So to understand how to build habits, you want to understand the habit loop. And the loop, it's a series of events that happens with each habit. And it goes like this: cue, craving, routine, reward. So the cue is whatever prompts you to do the thing. The craving is when you feel like, oh, I should do this thing, whatever this habit is. And then you do the routine, you get your reward. So for example, brushing your teeth. The cue for brushing your teeth is something like that you got up in the morning, or that you're about to go to bed, or something like that, or maybe after a meal. And then you feel like, oh, I need to brush my teeth, or my teeth might rot. So that's kind of where you feel that craving, so to speak. Then you do it, and then you feel the reward, which is like, oh, that's good. My teeth are clean. I'm less likely to get cavities, or my mouth feels clean, or whatever. So that's the habit loop. It applies to all your habits. So it's helpful to understand that. And now the next thing I'm going to do is go through 4 habit laws. These 4 habit laws are from that book, Atomic Habits, and I'm going to teach you how to apply each one to your health-related habits, nutrition, fasting, exercise, whatever it may be. And yes, that was my doorbell a moment ago. I got a package delivered, and you'll also hear some dogs barking because they love to bark anytime there's any commotion. But let's go ahead and move on to the habit laws. The first law is to make it obvious. So whatever this new habit is you're trying to develop, you want to make it super obvious so you can't forget. No matter how hard you try to forget, you cannot, because you're going to have some big reminder, like a big chart on the wall, or if you're trying to exercise, you might put your exercise equipment in the hallway where you're going to trip over it, something where you just cannot forget. So you make it super obvious, super easy to remember. If you're trying to start fasting, one way to do that is to use an app, because they have a lot of notifications, like reminders, like, oh, you just finished your fast, or oh, it's time to start fasting, or something like that. So you wouldn't be able to forget. It'll be very obvious. So that's the first law of forming new habits. The second law is to make it appealing. Whatever it is you're trying to do, make it appealing. So if you can figure out a way to make it sort of fun or appealing. So if that's exercise, do it with a friend, listen to music you like a lot. With fasting, one way that I find fasting more appealing is if I do it when I'm busy. So if I do it when I'm at work, for example, I work in the emergency room, it's often very busy. There's almost no time to find anything to eat or to sit down and eat. So if I plan to do my fast when I'm at work, it is more appealing because I know I'm not going to be distracted by food. I'll be able to get more done, and then I do whatever amount of fasting that I planned to do. So that's just an example, but anything you can do to kind of make the new habit more appealing, like that music or, anything you can think of. I mentioned earlier putting a chart on the wall. Well, it makes it appealing if you get to check off the habit each time that you do it. So that kind of makes it appealing, like, ooh, I want to check that off. You kind of feel that little bit of extra motivation. Each time you look at that chart, it's really obvious, and then it's appealing because like, ooh, I got to do that thing. The third law of forming new habits, this is probably my favorite. It's to make it easy. I guess the reason I like this is because it's the opposite of what people usually do. So with the example of the New Year's resolutions, people usually make their new resolution, the new habit that they're trying to form, very hard. They make it really hard. So for example, maybe if you drink a lot of alcohol, you might say like, oh, I'm going to completely quit drinking on New Year's Day. Or if you never go to the gym, you might say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every day for an hour. And that's really hard because it's so different from your usual identity. So chances are you're not only going to last a couple of days. But a better way to approach it is to do the complete opposite and make it super easy, like ridiculously easy, so easy you can't say no at the beginning. Now, you eventually don't want it to be so easy that it gets boring, but at the beginning, when there's otherwise a lot of resistance to doing this new thing, you want to just make it easy and just do it for a while. So I'll give you a quick example from my own experience. There was a time when I was trying to get in the habit of meditating every day, doing a little short guided meditation or whatever. And so I was trying to do 10 minutes a day. But I found that every time I was thinking, oh, maybe I should do that, I always felt a lot of resistance because even though 10 minutes, it's not very much time, but it still felt like it was going to be a lot of time to put towards that at any given moment during the day. And so what I did was I turned it down to 5 minutes, and I said, okay, I'll try to do 5 minutes. And so then I didn't feel nearly as much resistance because there was something about 5 minutes versus 10 minutes where it was a lot easier to get myself to do it for 5 minutes every day. So then I started doing it, and I started getting more into the habit. So that's a really important law of establishing new habits, is to make it very easy at the beginning, easy enough that there's not a lot of resistance, or at least not enough that it's going to stop you. And by the way, quick side note, you want to do the opposite of this when you're stopping a bad habit. You want to try to make it hard, make it difficult. So for example, if you're trying to not smoke, then obviously you wouldn't want to have cigarettes in your home or be around secondhand smoke or something like that. So you kind of change your environment so it's harder for you to end up doing this thing. Or eating junk food, you could like hide all the junk food or get it out of your house or whatever, and then it's going to be a lot harder to do that bad habit. And so it's going to be the opposite, it'll be easier to not do it as well. So the fourth and final law of forming new habits is to make it satisfying. Now, a lot of health-related habits are satisfying kind of automatically. For example, after you do a workout, you feel pretty satisfied, right? Or after you finish an extended fast, you feel really satisfied. At least I do. But you can make a point of making things even more satisfying by having some kind of reward or something at the end. For example, maybe you eat a really healthy but delicious meal after your fast or after your workout, and so you kind of get to really sit down and savor that and enjoy that. Or it doesn't have to be food related. It could be like you go listen to your favorite song, you go get a massage, you go do some other fun thing, play a game with family after you accomplish whatever this thing is. So whatever you can think of to kind of make it satisfying, that's going to help kind of give you that little extra boost to do that new habit. So I want to circle back one more time to that idea of putting like a big chart on the wall for whatever your new habit is, because that actually covers most of these habit laws. So if you put the chart on the wall, it makes it obvious because you can't forget about it because boom, there it is. It makes it appealing because you want to do it. It makes it satisfying after you do it. So it covers a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about just by having like a chart or something similar where you're going to see it, you're going to do it, you're going to check it off at the end. So one thing I don't have time to talk about today is commitment devices. Those are really, really powerful, and I talked about those in the podcast version and the blog version. So again, check out those links if you want to go a little bit more in depth. And I told you I'd tell you a little bit about the 10-day challenge. So if you want to consider establishing the habit of intermittent fasting and getting consistent with that, I have a 10-day no snacking challenge, because avoiding snacks is generally a good first step towards intermittent fasting. So just eating good, satisfying meals, but not snacking in between. So if you want to sign up for that, I've got a series of emails that guides you through it, gives you like the resources and motivation and answers common questions and all that sort of stuff. So I'll put a link below. You can go ahead and jump over and check out the 10-day no snacking challenge. And if you want to see some videos to help boost your motivation towards intermittent fasting by learning more about the benefits and things like that, I've got a playlist right here that's all about fasting motivation, about all the different health benefits and other things to kind of give you a kick in the pants to get you started. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.